Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for Justice League. So Justice League is the fifth installment in this new incarnation of DC films. The first one was Man of Steel back in 2013, which is actually a movie I kind of find to be underrated. I understand that it's very flawed, and I understand there's a lot of problems going on with it, but I actually found quite a bit of enjoyment in it, and I thought it was quite entertaining. And then you had Batman vs. Superman, which wasn't the best. It had a lot of issues. I honestly found it to be extremely stale. Then you had Suicide Squad, which was just incompetent and very lazy. Then you had Wonder Woman, which was an improvement, which a lot of people loved. I kind of think it's just okay. There's really nothing that made me love it. And then you have this one, which is Justice League. This one is brought to us by the director of Batman v Superman as well, Zack Snyder, who actually had to leave production. I believe it was actually in post-production that he had to leave, or maybe it was at the very end of shooting the film. But they brought on Joss Whedon last second to finish editing and finish the fine-tuning of the film. So it's basically directed by two different people, which is kind of surprising why Justice League sort of feels like a movie that's fairly consistent. I was actually surprised by the fact that this movie was directed by two people, because it did sort of feel like one vision. I think Joss Whedon did a great job of continuing what Zack Snyder wanted, rather than branching off and doing his own thing. So this film sort of follows Bruce Wayne trying to get this team together, trying to assimilate the five people in it, which are the Flash, Cyborg, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. And later on, they do have Superman. It was shown in the trailer, so I don't feel bad about saying that. But it's about how the five and then the six of them have to fight this one villain. I completely forget the villain's name. I completely forget his intentions. But he's a villain who's there and looks ominous and looks mean. And the Justice League are trying to destroy him while also trying to form this team. And in case you can't tell by that description, this movie was a huge disappointment. I really wanted to love Justice League. I really wanted this to be a great movie because I have been dying and pleading for there to be a great DC film. There has not been one since Man of Steel, personally, that I would view anything above good, and this one joined the ranks. I would say that it is better than Batman vs. Superman, but definitely not better than Wonder Woman, and I think that the DC Cinematic Universe is still very much in trouble, because this movie is flawed in so many ways, the biggest of which is just the fact of how stale it is. It's very similar to Batman vs. Superman, actually. Structurally and tonally, this movie is basically the same movie. And it sort of felt like the same movie while I was watching it, because even though they incorporated new characters, and even though they incorporated new ideas and new themes, this movie has the same issue as Batman v Superman. I felt like I was staring at a wall for 2 hours. It provided that much entertainment. My mind was working just as much as it would if I was staring at a wall for 2 hours. There was absolutely nothing going on in this movie. The conflict is so minimal and so minute that the conflict really only happens towards the end of the movie and a couple points throughout, and the rest of it is just elongated sequences that really feel like they have no intention. I believe that the executives at Warner Brothers came to Zack Snyder and told him that he had to make this movie under 2 hours, which makes sense, because the movie has a weird combination of feeling too long and feeling too short. But I think that the main issue is that DC does not know how to optimize their screen time. The added characters in this movie are Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman, and I can't say a single thing about Cyborg or Aquaman, and I can barely say anything about the Flash. He's awkward, and he's a lot like Spider-Man. That's basically all I can say about him. I don't even know if he was in high school, or if he was out of high school and working dead-end jobs. I couldn't really tell what his situation was. He was just really confusing. He was an okay character. Ezra Miller did a fine job, although he did overact a lot, but I think that stems more from the director than from Ezra Miller, because Ezra Miller has clearly shown that he has great acting chops. But also Aquaman and Cyborg, both of them were just so unbelievably stale, mostly because of the performances, but also because of how little the script gave them to do. Cyborg stands there for the entire movie and says exposition. There is no emotion in his character. He has one or two jokes, all of which fall completely flat, and there's really nothing going on with his character. Aquaman is fine. The thing is, they try to build him up as this BA hero type, and he doesn't come off that way because Jason Momoa is not the best actor. His aesthetic for the character looks great. He's strong, he's muscular, and in the costume and the makeup, he looks great as the role. But outside of that, he wasn't all that great. And then there's also Batman and Wonder Woman, of course, which are the main players. And unfortunately, I think Batman was pretty stale in this movie as well. Ben Affleck has been talking for a while about how he wants to get out of the DC universe and he wants to stop being Batman, which is understandable. Honestly, I think the shining point here was Gal Gadot. She continues to prove the fact that she was a good decision for the role, because even though her acting chops are not 100%, she is getting better, and you can see throughout Wonder Woman, you can see it, and throughout Justice League, you can see it. You can see how she's improving, and she's getting better at it, and that's really great to see. She is definitely the best part of this movie. When there are jokes, which really none of them land, and I'll get to that a little bit later. She usually has the funny ones, and she has a lot of the dramatic sequences she does really well. And then, of course, Superman, Henry Cavill, I think he's really good. I think he's the best Superman we have. I mean, there's not much competition. I'm sorry for everyone that loves Christopher Reeves. I personally don't get it. He's okay. But I think Henry Cavill did a good job here, and I really want to see more from him, because in Batman v Superman, he got nothing to do. I think that they said, I'm not sure about this, but they said that Spider-Man in Civil War had more lines than Superman in Batman versus Superman, which is not surprising because he had a very minute role there, but he was good in Man of Steel, and he was especially good in this, so I really hope that he's given more time to develop his character. And speaking of developing characters, that is something that this movie struggles with a lot. If you would have given more time to Cyborg and Aquaman and The Flash, I think I would have cared much more about them. And it wasn't for a lack of trying. They start off the movie by going to each individual character and showing them as they're living. And I liked that idea. The issue is, when there's no personality among the characters, it's really hard to grow any attachment. And I think personality is what DC struggles with most. Definitely using screen time effectively is there, but having personality and having something that distinguishes yourself from other movies and other comic books, especially Marvel, is something DC struggles with a lot, and they especially struggle with it in this movie. That's the main reason why this movie feels so stale, why so many of the jokes they try to attempt at being as funny as possible, but all of them fall flat and none of them work. It's because DC doesn't focus on, it focuses on runtime, and it focuses on CGI, and it focuses on other things, but what it should focus on, what its number one main goal should be, is adding personality or style or impression into their films, because as of right now, like I said earlier, it's like staring at a wall for 2 hours. There's no entertainment. I feel bored throughout, and that's not something I should say about a comic book movie. I should not say that I am bored with it, but unfortunately, that's the reality of Justice League. This movie easily could have been much better if you would have got a more inspired director, maybe if you would have started with Joss Whedon from the start, or maybe even a no-name actor who has a lot of style. I would have loved to see that, and I would have loved for this movie to branch out and try something new. They stick to the formulaic superhero plot so much that there is really nothing special going on here. It's so stale and so boring that I wanted the movie to be over about 30 minutes in, and that's not something you should say about Justice League. It's supposed to be a big, fun superhero movie with a giant scope and great characters and huge action sequences, but unfortunately it struggles in every single area that a superhero film should hit. And of course the action sequences were just abysmal. They provided no entertainment at all. They weren't exciting, they weren't thrilling, they were just boring, and they were filled to the brim with awful CGI. The CGI in this movie is just terrible. There's no excuse for it. It's just really, really bad. and I was really let down by that. And especially the CGI was bad in the final action sequence where they try to show this big city. Oh, that's another issue. The fact that they try to show the big scope of this one, I believe it's an Icelandic city, the fact that it's in complete chaos, and yet they only show one family and they only show them twice. The issue is, it's stuff like that that feels underdeveloped, but when you look at the movie as a whole, you realize that all of it feels way too quick, and it feels like it went by way too quickly. Yet on the other side, it feels like this movie wasted too much time, and because it felt so long and so drawn out, that no development was going into any characters. And that was a huge issue. It has a weird balance, a weird contrast of feeling like it's too long and feeling like it's too short. Justice League was not an easy movie to make. There were so many things going on set. Just thinking about this movie, thinking about the directions it could have took, it's really hard to think about because you had 2 hours to develop a villain and these brand new characters and try to make everybody funny and try to make it overall entertaining. And it's really hard to make a movie like this, which is why you need a talented director. And that's not what this movie got. They got a really weak director in Zack Snyder. He's done fine stuff in the past, but he is really not a strong director. And now that he's gone, I think that you may get some better stuff going on in this universe, or at least that's what I hope for. Because as of now, I have no more faith in the DC universe. After so many times, I can no longer have faith in the fact that they're going to put out good movies. Maybe Aquaman will be good, maybe The Flash will be good, maybe Cyborg will be good, maybe they're taking on different types of stories and they're trying to do different types of things, but really, I think that DC, as of right now, is sort of dead. There's no personality in it, there's no originality, their formula that they use for basically every movie is really weak and really stale, and I think that as box office numbers are declining for this universe, quality doesn't seem to be getting all that better, and I really don't have a lot of faith in this universe anymore, and Justice League is a big contributor to that. Because of that, I will give Justice League a 3.5 out of 10. Alright, that concludes my review for Justice League. What are your thoughts on this film? Or what do you think of Batman vs. Superman or other DC films? Comment in the comment section below and let me know. I'm Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.